Grab a cup of coffee, sit back, and listen to Change Your Attitude, Change Your Life. Change Your Attitude, Change Your Life features stories to inspire and motivate you. Live your best life now. Listen, learn, think, and decide. Change Your Attitude, Change Your Life. Visit cyacyl.com.
Welcome to Change Your Attitude, Change Your Life. I'm Joan Herman. Thanks for tuning in. How often do you make excuse for not following a dream? Is it easier for you to come up with some reason rather than put yourself out there? After hearing the story of today's guest, Patrick Hughes, you'll learn that nothing should be holding you back. Patrick was born without eyes and without the ability to fully straighten his arms and legs, making him unable to walk. But he hasn't let his physical issues get in his way. Despite circumstances that may seem overwhelming, Patrick plays the piano and trumpet, and he participated in the University of Louisville marching band with the help from his father, who maneuvered Patrick's wheelchair through the formations. He's been featured on ESPN, ABC, Oprah, CBS, The Ellen Show, Fox, NBC, The Today Show, People Magazine, and Sports Illustrated, among many others. Patrick is the author of the new book, I Am Potential. Patrick, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be with you today.
Patrick, you are such an inspiring person. I mean, after learning about your story, the example that you're setting for all of us, there is no excuse for anyone to not go after what they want, and we should never limit ourselves. Would you agree with that?
Yes, I would definitely agree with that. You know, it's true that there are obstacles and challenges that you face in your life, but life is truly a blessing, and, you know, one of the things I always believe in is living every day to the fullest. You know, as I always like to say, like the last day of summer vacation. As I always say, yesterday, that's come and gone. There's nothing we can do about that. Tomorrow, that's still yet to come. We're not always guaranteed that. All we have is this little 24-hour space that makes up today. So enjoy every moment of that.
Patrick, how did you become so wise? Did you always have this type of outlook?
Well, I think my parents helped me in some ways, but I was actually born, just to give everyone a little information they may not know, I was born with the condition bilateral anophthalmia without eyes, as well as pterygium syndrome, which is the thing that causes me not to be able to straighten out my arms and legs completely, but yeah, I've never really dwelt on that, and my parents never really dwelt on that. Their main focus was, you know, making sure that I could be everything that I could be. As a matter of fact, I don't think I even knew that I was blind until I was in preschool. I was in preschool and playing with this little electronic keyboard they had for me, and this girl came up to me and she said, you know, did you know you're blind? And I said, yes. She said, do you know why you're blind? And I said, yes, or I said, no, and she said, because you were born that way. Okay, back to the keyboard.
So what was it like for you growing up? We've heard about your family support, but how did other children treat you? I mean, it's difficult for all of us to go through that period in our lives. What was it like for you?
Well, you know, I always knew that people were different. Even when I was growing up, when I was little, I mean, everyone was physically different from me. You know, I always enjoyed, especially being, when I was little, I enjoyed being held and cuddled, and, you know, I'd explore people when they held me and cuddled me. You know, I noticed that, for example, I had a smooth face, and my dad at the time had a beard or a mustache, and, you know, I noticed my eyes being artificial. They were hard and plastic, whereas other people's eyes were soft and fluttered. And, you know, I believe, you know, sure there were a few people that, you know, were a little nervous around me, I guess, but for the most part, everyone was great growing up and always able and willing to help wherever possible.
The interesting thing in listening to you speak, I can hear the joy in your voice. I can hear the attitude that you've adopted in your life, and I think it's wonderful, and that's why I say you're such an inspiration, because the rest of us, you know, so many of us, you said, yeah, maybe there are a couple people that were uncomfortable, and you got past that where the rest of us would focus our lives on those few people. So how did you make that happen so that we can learn from you?
Well, I guess the big thing for me was trying to, you know, look at more of the positive and less of the negative. And, you know, granted, like everyone, I've had my days where maybe, the obstacles are a little tough and seems like the odds might be stacked against me. But another thing that really helps is counting your blessings and looking at, maybe not only the big things in life, if you're lucky enough to have those, but even the small things in life. Food on the table, a good family, a nice bed to sleep in, a roof over your head. Just to be able to wake up in the morning and meet the day is a blessing.
Because our blessings, when we do look at them, Patrick, they definitely outweigh any challenges that we're facing in life.
That is true. And we should all, take the opportunity to look at them, just to be able to live in this country is one of the greatest things, the greatest blessings we can have.
So, Patrick, let's talk a little bit about these incredible gifts that you have. I read somewhere that you started to play the piano at the age of 9 months. Were you just banging on the piano at that time, or were people starting to realize that there's something special? He does have a musical gift.
Well, I better start you at the beginning on this because technically it started when I was about 4 months old. My dad was a music major in college, majored in violin and minored in piano. And one day, like I said, I was about 4 months old, and he was the youngest of 5, so had never really been around babies and didn't really know what to do. Well, Mom decided that she'd watched him with me long enough and figured that he knew what he was doing, and he had me fed, changed, did everything that he knew to do, and for whatever reason, I was still crying, and he couldn't get me to stop for anything. So he came up with the idea to lay me up on top the piano and play. And to this day, we don't know whether I liked it or what it was, but I immediately got quiet, which I think made Dad happy. We look back on it, we think maybe it brought me to a whole new level of terror. So at the age of 9 months, Dad took the tray off of this old wooden high chair and put that up in front of the piano because, as you said, he thought I would enjoy, banging on the keys and seeing how much noise I could make. But I always played with one finger, kind of. I guess my mission was to find out what key made what sound.
So from that early age, Patrick, because I play the piano, from that early age, you didn't bang, you actually started to play with one finger.
Yes.
And when did you start to play tunes, actual tunes?
I think probably about at a year or two I was able to play my little nursery rhyme tapes and Sesame Street tapes and things like that. And I always enjoyed it, sitting at the piano for as long as I could, maybe a space of 3 or 4 hours playing these little melodies.
Patrick, have you ever had any formal music lessons, or do you play strictly by ear?
I do play by ear, but I do also take piano lessons and have pretty much through all my life. My dad taught me for, I guess, the first, 4 or 5 years of my life. And then around that time, I had one younger brother, and I have 2 now, but it got to everything that I was doing, that my brother was doing, and, my parents had to do. Dad couldn't find the time to teach me anymore. So he found a lady who is also blind and asked her, she's also a piano teacher, and he asked her if she would teach me the piano or some classical type repertoire. He thought it would be good, too, because she was also blind. She'd see the piano like I would. And she agreed, so I took from her for about 4 or 5 years. You hear that old expression, the blind leading the blind. She was a wonderful teacher and got me started on classical repertoire. And then after about 4 or 5 years with her, I took a break from piano because I had a back operation to correct scoliosis from having been in the wheelchair all that time. And by the time I was ready to continue with the piano, we called her back and asked if she would take me on. She hated to lose me as a student, so to speak, but she said she'd taken me as far as she could. So we found the teacher with whom I am actually currently studying, and she is a Juilliard graduate who teaches in Louisville, and she comes out to the house every week and works with me on some more advanced classical repertoire.
So then you learned also to play the trumpet. What made you decide to switch instruments?
Well, I started trumpet in the 4th grade. After I'd become pretty proficient with the piano and being able to sing, I kind of wanted to experiment with some new instruments. And in my elementary school, I think it's mandatory now, but when I was in 4th grade, it was voluntary. You could be in either the band or the orchestra if you wanted. Now, I couldn't be in the orchestra because the way my arms are, they can't perform certain movements that would enable me to hold a stringed instrument. So band was okay with me, but when I joined the band, I wanted to play the drums because I was interested in some of the metallic percussion instruments, but you have to be able to move your body certain ways to hit more than one drum at once, and there's pedals on a drum set that operate the bass drum and some of the cymbals, and I can't reach those. So my parents gave me the trumpet because both of them can actually play a little bit of the trumpet, and they thought I would enjoy it, and they could help work with me on it wherever I might need help. And that's been a pretty good ride as well.
So you were in the marching band for the University of Louisville. Before that, were you in your high school marching band as well, or was that the first time?
I was in my high school marching band. It was kind of new for me in college because in high school for marching band, all I did for the halftime show was I sat on the sidelines and played my instruments, and I think some of the bigger instruments did their formations around me. Mm-hmm. Or the bigger instruments sat with me, and the rest of the band did their formations around me.
But when you got to college, you needed to be able to be involved in the formations. And when you approached them and you said you wanted to be part of the marching band at the university, how were you received? Were they open to the idea?
Actually, everyone was absolutely wonderful. The students were great, and they would help both me and my dad wherever we would need help. Sometimes when we weren't marching, we might rehearse music indoors, and music's divided into all these measures and bar lines or whatever, and the band director would say something like, okay, we're going to do the fight song at measure 12. So I could turn to the trumpet player sitting next to me and say, okay, where is that? And the trumpet player would sing a little bit of it for me, and I could follow along easily with everyone else. And then they were also, like I said, very helpful to Dad as well, because he pushed my wheelchair through the formations. And if ever Dad got lost, then the person next to him would subtly take his or her hand off the instrument and point Dad in the right direction.
So it was a real team effort.
Definitely. And all credit goes to Dr. Greg Byrne, the band director at the University of Louisville, because it was actually sort of his decision, because my main goal when I arrived at the University of Louisville was to be in the pep band that plays at the basketball games. But at the time, there was actually a rule that in order to be in the pep band, you have to be a member of the marching band as well. And of course, my dad and I are hearing this, and we're like, yeah, I'm lying in a wheelchair. I'm going to be a member of the marching band. Sure, whatever. So Dad and Ian just had him sign us up for pep band, and he had the idea to write to the university president or somebody to get me out of marching band. But as usual, he procrastinated, and lo and behold, next thing you know, it's time for marching band camp that meets 10 days before classes are due to start, 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. under a baking hot August sun. So I decide, okay, Dad hadn't done anything about the letter. They're expecting us. We should go. So we're going to band camp, and Dad's going with the mindset that nothing will inspire him to get that letter written more so than being out there on the field doing all this stuff. And, we do our band camp session from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. We get back home, I guess, around 8:15, 8:30, something like that. Now, before all this national attention started, I'd gotten a lot of local attention via some fundraisers I'd performed at and some local telethons and things like that. So we get home to discover the telephone ringing off the hook. We're getting emails coming in from friends and family and even strangers. We heard on the 6 o'clock news Patrick's going to be a member of the marching band. Cool, that's awesome. Halftime we usually go to the concession stand. Now we have an excuse to stay and watch the band. So with that, the die was cast, so to speak, and we had to find a way to make it work.
There was no way out. But, listening to your story, Patrick, the thing that I want our listeners to really pay attention to is that when the idea came, your initial reaction was, yeah, right, like I'm going to make this happen. And so many of us say that in our lives when there's something that either we're approached with or we have a dream, our initial reaction is, yeah, right, like I'm going to do this. But what you've shown us is that with teamwork, with some determination, with maybe a little creativity, there's always a way to accomplish whatever it is we want.
Yeah, that is true. It doesn't matter where you're from, who you are, what challenges you have to face. If you set your mind to achieve a goal, then you can do it.
Patrick, we need to take a break. When we return, I will continue my conversation with Patrick Hughes. This is Change Your Attitude, Change Your Life. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Change Your Attitude, Change Your Life now has a free monthly digital magazine that can be read online or emailed to your inbox. Each month, nationally recognized leaders in their field provide the information that you need to inspire and motivate you. We believe in a holistic approach to life, incorporating mind, body, and spirit. As philosopher Francis Bacon said, knowledge is power. Use the wisdom provided in the publication and apply it to your everyday life. Visit cyacyl.com for more information or to begin your free subscription. That's cyacyl.com. Welcome back to Change Your Attitude, Change Your Life. I'm Joan Herman, and our guest today is Patrick Hughes, author of the book, I Am Potential. Patrick, before break, we were talking about how you've gotten to this point in your life and how you've never allowed anything that you've experienced to stand in your way. And I really believe that it's just an incredible lesson that so many of us need to learn, that we create our own roadblocks. And as I said before the break, with teamwork and creativity and determination, nothing is impossible. Are you a spiritual person? I mean, what is the role of faith, if any, in your emotional recovery?
Well, faith has played a big role in my life, whenever I feel, times are a little challenging, I can always turn to God to help me out. And I read the Bible every day. I am actually on probably my 13th or 14th reading of the Bible right now and read every day and try to attend church every Sunday and pray whenever I need to.
Now, Patrick, you go out and you inspire people to follow their dream. And what do you tell the members of your audience when you address this, when you try to get people to move forward and not allow things to stop them? What advice do you offer?
Well, my main piece of advice is, to continue to move forward and don't let anything get in your way. Sure, there are obstacles and challenges that you have to conquer, but, you just have to get through them and do your best. As a matter of fact, one of the things I always enjoy sharing is sort of an acronym that I created, and it's the first three letters of my name, P-A-T, and it is all about how to achieve a goal that you feel is impossible. The P is passion, patience, and perseverance. Because in order to achieve a goal, you've got to have a passion for that goal and be patient because, it's not going to work like that. It might take a while, so, keep persevering, keep trying, don't give up. The A is ability and attitude. Use the abilities that you know you have and keep a positive attitude because your goal's not going to work unless you have a positive attitude. And then the T is trust. Trust in yourself. You will achieve your goal eventually.
Now, what would you say to someone who is afraid of failure? Were you ever afraid to fail at something, or you always push past that?
I have had my moments where, I was afraid of failure, especially on, for example, tests in class or performances at big venues. But one of the big mottos I live by is don't be nervous about doing badly, or you will.
Patrick, what's your reason to face each day?
I guess my reason to face each day is every day is a blessing, and there's so much out there that I want to do, and so many things to do in just one little 24-hour space. I actually, bit of a known fact about me, I hate to sleep. I'm usually, for the most part, go to bed maybe about 1 or 2 in the morning and get up about 6:30 or 7 in the morning, mainly because there's just so much out there to do with the piano practice and trumpet practice, and then other things that I enjoy doing for fun. It's just so much out there, and as my band director, Dr. Byrne, would sometimes say at the beginning of a rehearsal, lots to do and a little time to do it.
And I think, and this is because I can hear this in your voice, I think it's because you found your passion, you found your joy, that you can't wait to do what you do. And that's such an important thing for all of us to try to find.
That is true. If as long as you find your passion and are able to pursue it every day, how can you hate life, so to speak?
The book is I Am Potential by Patrick Hughes. Patrick, where can our listeners go to get more information about you?
You can go to my website, patrickhenryhughes.com. That's all one word, and again, that's patrickhenryhughes.com. And there's some videos that people have done, and you can find information to get not only a copy of my book, but a couple of CDs that I have made with a mix of different genres of music for you to enjoy. And also, if you go to YouTube or Google, there are other stories out there as well.
So that's patrickhenryhughes.com, or as always, our listeners can visit our website, which is cyacyl.com. That stands for Change Your Attitude, Change Your Life. While on our site, listen to past shows as podcasts, read the digital magazine, sign up for our mailing list, take part in our book club, and be sure to follow the show on Facebook and Twitter. Patrick, in about 30 seconds or less, what would be one thing that you want to leave our listeners with to help them to hold on through life's challenges?
My main message is life is truly a blessing. Sure, there are challenges and obstacles. It's hard to get through, and you don't know how you're going to. But just remember that once you do, it can lead to a big reward for you at the end. So continue to work hard and enjoy every moment of every single day.
Patrick, thank you so much for spending time with us today. As I've said throughout the interview, I can hear the joy and the passion in your life, and you truly have figured out that it's our attitude that impacts everything that we do. And I'm just so happy that you were here to share some of the wisdom that you've learned. So thank you.
Thank you very much. God bless.
This is Change Your Attitude, Change Your Life. I'm Joan Herman. Thanks for tuning in.